Okay, so you know that feeling, right? Like when you're about to give a presentation and suddenly it's like, bam, your heart's just pounding
Oh, yeah.
and your palms are all sweaty and you'd honestly rather be like anywhere else.
I know. I know.
Yeah, well, it turns out you are so not alone. Public speaking fear, it's like incredibly common. And that's actually what we're going to unpack today.
It is fascinating, though, right? I mean, it's so widespread. But a lot of times it's not even about not having, like, the speaking skills,
Hmm,
you know?
that's true.
It's often something way deeper, like a psychological response.
Exactly. And that's why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking at this script from English with Podcast, and it tackles public speaking fear, but like from two different angles, right?
Yeah.
So there's the language side of it, but then also the psychology, which I really like. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, they do a great job. They talk about how public speaking, it can trigger, like, our fight or flight response.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about it, our ancestors, right?
Mm.
They evolved in these environments where if you stood out in a group,
Oh.
that could mean you're facing a real physical threat.
So wait, are you saying that even though like nowadays we're just giving a presentation or whatever, our brains are basically still reacting like we're about to be chased by a saber-toothed tiger?
Pretty much. I mean, our brains haven't exactly caught up to the fact that most presentations, they aren't actually life or death.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and the script, it highlights three main triggers that set off this whole response.
Hmm.
So number one, fear of judgment.
Okay.
Number two, the pressure to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And then just being the center of attention.
That's a big one. I'm curious, for you listening, which of those like resonates most with you? Is it the being judged thing, or is it the pressure to just nail it perfectly? Or maybe it's more about the like discomfort of all eyes on you, or could it even be something else entirely?
Let's break down that fight or flight response a little more, actually, because just understanding it, that can be super helpful. So when we sense a threat,
Yeah,
right, even if it's just like a perceived threat,
like public space.
exactly, our bodies, they release adrenaline and cortisol.
Those are the stress hormones, yeah.
Yes, and they cause a whole cascade of physical reactions, like your heart rate speeds up, you start breathing faster,
Yeah.
your muscles tense up, you might even start sweating. Like your body is literally preparing you to either fight or flee.
Wow, so that whole like heart racing feeling before a presentation, that's just our body, like gearing up for a battle that's not even happening.
You got it. And, understanding this physiological response,
Mhm.
that's actually the first step to managing it. And the script, it goes on to offer 5 practical strategies
Mhm.
for overcoming this fear. And they're all about, like, retraining our brains and our bodies to react differently.
Okay, I'm into that. So what's the first strategy? Is it the super obvious one, like prepare, prepare, prepare?
You know it.
Hmm?
It does seem simple, but it's honestly crucial. Like, the more familiar you are with your material, the less likely you'll be to feel flustered or lose your train of thought.
Right.
Like, preparation gives you a sense of control, which directly counteracts that overwhelmed feeling,
Mhm.
which often is what fuels anxiety.
I see. So it's like having a roadmap. Even if you like hit a detour, you kind of still know the general direction
Right.
and you can find your way back.
That's a great analogy. And the next strategy, it actually builds on that, practicing.
Mhm.
The script, it recommends practicing in front of a mirror or recording yourself.
Yeah.
I know, and it can feel a little awkward at first,
Yeah.
but it's seriously so helpful for developing self-awareness.
You know what? I used to think that whole mirror thing was kind of silly, but then I had this big presentation and I tried it and I was shocked. Like, it helped so much. I caught myself saying, like every other word.
That is such a perfect example, though, of how it brings those unconscious habits to light. And recording yourself, it lets you, like, see what your audience is seeing, so you can actually make adjustments. Plus, the more you hear your own voice in that context, the less foreign and scary it'll sound.
It's like getting used to anything new, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you become. Which brings us to the next strategy, which is starting small.
Love this one. You don't need to jump right into a TED Talk.
Yeah.
Practice with a friend, family, even your cat.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think even just recording a voice note to yourself can be helpful. It's about getting used to, like, the act of speaking out loud and expressing your ideas.
Exactly. It's building, like, a hierarchy of challenges. Each small step builds confidence and it chips away at that fear. Even something as simple as practicing while walking the dog, it gets those endorphins going, which helps with, like, your mood and managing stress.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, what about this next one? It's all about mindset, right? Visualization. So picture yourself giving that presentation all smooth and confident, and the audience, they're engaged, they're interested.
It's not just positive thinking, it's neuroscience. Like when you visualize an action, it activates the same neural pathways, as if you're actually doing it.
So, wait, you're saying we can like trick our brains into feeling like it's already been there, done that?
I wouldn't say tricking, more like training. You're creating like these positive associations and building those neural pathways so that you're replacing those fear-based responses with feelings of confidence and competence.
That is so cool. All right, bring on the final strategy. This one I think is super important. Embrace mistakes. We all make them. It's part of being human.
100%. But isn't there like a risk there? Like what if you get too comfortable in those low-pressure situations?
Yeah.
And then you like freeze up when the stakes are higher? What do you think about that?
That is a good point. I think that's where the balance comes in, right? Like between preparation and practice. You want to be comfortable enough to, roll with the punches, but also prepared enough to feel confident in your material.
I see what you mean. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're not totally paralyzed by perfectionism, but you're still striving for excellence, which actually ties into this idea of shifting your mindset from like performance-based to connection-based.
Ooh, interesting. So instead of seeing the audience as like judges waiting to criticize, what if we saw them as people who are actually interested in what we have to say?
Exactly. And just like in a normal conversation, right, there'll be pauses, maybe a word fumble. But those little moments, they don't invalidate the whole message or the connection you're building.
I love that. Shifting from performance to connection, it takes so much pressure off, and it lets you be more authentic. Speaking of overcoming challenges, the English with Podcasts script, it's sharing this really interesting story about Warren Buffett. Apparently, he used to be terrified of public speaking.
I know, right? Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
one of the most successful investors ever. And he used to be so scared of public speaking that he actually dropped out of a speaking course.
It's kind of inspiring, though, right? I mean, it's reassuring to know that even someone like him struggled with this. The script says he would go to, like, crazy lengths to avoid speaking engagements early on in his career. Can you imagine someone with all that knowledge and insight hiding from the spotlight, all because of fear?
It definitely shows you we often create our own limitations. But the amazing thing is Buffett didn't let that fear define him. He recognized it was a challenge, and he actually worked on it. He built his public speaking skills.
And the script points out that he eventually became, like, a highly sought-after speaker, known for his clear communication and his engaging storytelling. Talk about a transformation. It really shows that this fear, it's not insurmountable.
Exactly. Kind of goes back to what we were saying before, right, about shifting from that performance-based mindset to a connection-based one. So instead of focusing on being perfect or impressing the audience, what if you focused on just sharing valuable insights and connecting with people on a human level?
It makes you wonder if that shift in perspective was part of what helped Buffett find his voice. Like maybe by focusing on the value he could bring to others, he was able to push past the fear and just be himself.
That's a really interesting thought. It suggests that vulnerability and authenticity, they can actually be strengths when it comes to public speaking. When we let go of trying to be perfect and we embrace our imperfections, we create space for genuine connection.
It's like, those times when you see a speaker and they stumble over their words, or they even like make a mistake during the presentation, but somehow those moments make them even more relatable and engaging. It's like their humanness shines through, and it lets the audience connect with them on a deeper level.
For sure. It breaks down that wall between speaker and audience, creates this sense of shared experience. And it reminds us that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to be human. In fact, those little imperfections, they can actually make your message more impactful.
So if Warren Buffett can conquer his fear of public speaking and go on to become, this captivating speaker, it gives the rest of us hope, right? What about, for our listener out there, who might be dealing with this same fear? What are your thoughts?
I think the main takeaway is it's a process. It's a journey. It's not about like magically erasing the fear overnight. It's about consistently working at it, using the strategies we've been talking about: preparation, practice, visualization, starting small, embracing those mistakes, and most importantly, remembering that it's about connecting with your audience, not performing for them.
Yeah, and even though we've been talking about Buffett's journey, it's important to remember everyone's journey is unique. There's no, like, one-size-fits-all approach.
That's true. It's about finding what works for you, experimenting with different techniques, and figuring out what helps you feel more grounded and confident. And remember, it's okay to ask for help along the way.
There are so many resources out there these days, from like public speaking coaches to online communities to books and podcasts, like the one we're talking about today, even. You don't have to go through this alone.
And as you get more experience,
Yeah?
and you start to find what works for you, you might be surprised to find that public speaking, it can become not just something you tolerate, but something you actually enjoy.
Ooh, I love that. From fear to enjoy.